reason to be on your iPad unless you're taking notes on it. That would be it. Okay, so we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Now we got a little problem here. Mike, do you remember what an integer is? Good. They're whole numbers. That gives you the positive ones. And I want the negative ones, so those are opposites. And they're opposites. So if I have a positive 2, what's the opposite? Negative 2, because that's how I'm going to handle subtraction. So really, when I do addition subtraction, there's only one thing to do. When I do multiplication division, there's only one thing to do. I try and keep it simple. So what's the opposite of a negative 10? I'll label this positive 10. If I add a number to its opposite, I always get what value? What's 2 plus a negative 2? No. I'm going to start at the origin, 2 to the right, and then I'm going to come back. 2. I'm going to go back to 0. What about a negative 10 and a positive 10? It's 0. Yeah. Any number plus its opposite is 0. Guys, put that away. Okay. So when I add integers, and I don't want you to memorize. I don't memorize. I just think about it. And memorizing will get you nowhere in the long run. Okay, Josh? I see it already in calculus. And George, put your iPad away unless you're doing notes. Most have done that already. Okay, so if I'm adding integers, well, you know what? It's no big deal if I add a positive number and a positive number. That's what you've been doing since first grade. Okay, Josh, I want you to pay attention. I'm reviewing all this. I want you to be able to keep them straight. So if I add a positive 2 plus a positive 3, I'm going to get a positive, what? 5. Okay? And Mrs. Liedall, do you want to make sure that they're all in the right place on their iPads if they're using them only for notes right now? Okay.
If you don't want to do notes, stow your iPad, which
means close them up.
Means close them up. They shouldn't be sitting up, so stow them.
Okay. I don't have the time to teach and then be walking around here making sure you're paying attention to what I'm doing. I can't do that and get anything done.
Jake is doing notes.
Okay, good job. Okay, so what if I have two negatives, like a negative 2 plus a negative 3? Well, no, we're adding now. What does it mean? That means you start at the origin, and which way are you going? 2 to the left and 3 more to the left. You're going in the same direction. If they're both the same signs, you're going in the same direction. So the magnitude, the 2 and the 3 will add up, but my direction says I'm going left. If you're in 9th grade physical science, some of you are, or 10th grade physical science, you're going to be doing things with integers.
Yeah, we already have.
Yes. And the fact that you're talking about motion going left or motion going right. If you go left, we've agreed it will be negative. Same with the coordinate plane. If we go down in the XY plane, we agree it's negative. We've all agreed with that, Mike, because guess what happens in Minnesota in the wintertime? The temperature goes down and we get negative numbers. Okay. So this is somebody, what you need to understand is somebody decided to do it this way. We've all agreed to do it that way. It was not written in stone that it would be this way. But somebody a long time ago did it, and we've all agreed to do the same thing. Okay. What if these are opposite signs? Remember, if they were the same sign, we sum. But then you have to watch your sign, that's all. But if they're opposite signs, like a +2 plus a -3, this is much harder to me than the multiplying. Multiplying is much easier. That means we start it. This is a -2, -3. Make sure we start at 0. We're going to go 2 to the right And then what are we going to do? We're going to go 3 back. What operation will I do to find out how far apart these are? If I went 2 to the right and 3 back, what's the answer there? -1. What did you do with the 3 and the 2 to get the 1? They're going in opposite directions. Did I add 2 and 3, or did I subtract 2 and 3? I subtracted. Now the hard part is it positive or is it negative? Well, I have more negative signs there. So it's not +1, it's going to be -1, as I was told, -1. What if I do a -2 and a +3? I'm reviewing this. So I'm going to go 2 to the left, but I'm going to come back 3 to the right. -2 + 3. Again, I subtract to get the 1, but is it positive or is it negative? Where do I have more negatives or more positives? I have more positives than I do negatives. Another way you could do these would be with algebra tiles. You have 2 positives, and then we have 2 negatives. I don't care what color you make them. No, sorry, 3 negatives. And then these cancel out. Because remember, we talked about that. A number plus its opposite is 0. That's 0, and I'm left with 1 negative. So when I do these, I'm going to subtract or find the difference because they're different signs. That's the hardest part to me. And then you have to look at the one who has the bigger number. 3 is bigger than 2, so I have more negatives here. And here, 3 is bigger than 2, so I have more positives there. That requires thinking. Memorization will not do the trick unless you memorize every single number combination there is. Not going to work. So what do I do when I subtract integers? Because I said it's really the same. So if you do this, you will have adding down, subtracting integers. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. That quiz tomorrow will not take that long, so we have time to work in class before you quiz. It's going to be summative. Thank you for asking. Yep, this is going to count. Big category. So that's why I've been giving you all this practice. And that's why, George, it's very important. You should have your iPad put away. It's very important for you to be making corrections. Yes, okay. So the problem here is, like if you have 5 minus 3, okay, we know how to do that, right? What's 5 take away 3? Michael? 2. Okay. I could use this idea of adding the opposite. I get the same answer. I would make this its opposite, make it adding, and this its opposite. So it's 5 plus a -3. So it's 5 to the right, but it's 3 back. So I subtract to get the 2. 5 is bigger than 3, so I have more pluses. But you know, why change that? Because I know what that is anyway. That's not where the problem is. The problem is here. 5 minus a -3. That's where the problem comes in. So if I take all my subtracting and make them adding the opposite, so I'm going to add an opposite. Now this becomes 5 plus 3, which is simply 8. Or I could have a -5 minus a -3. And now things start making my stomach go like, ooh, I'm getting nervous here. There's a lot of signs there, right? Michael, do you know what to do with this? I'm going to leave this -5 just as it is, and I'm going to change this to what? Positive, and this will change to positive. So I really have this, a -5 plus 3. So you start at 0 degrees, and you're going to go down 5 degrees, but then the temperature rises 3. Where are you going to be? You start at 0, and the temperature drops. You're 5 below now. But you know what? It's always the coldest at sunrise. Did you know that? So even when I get up before sunrise, I know it's going to get colder. But let's say it's sunrise, and then what happens? The temperature rises 3 degrees. Are you still below zero? Yeah, I've got 5 negatives, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to have 3 positives. If you want to do it this way, that's fine. These all give you 0. I'm still going to be what? 2 negatives. But if you change all your subtracting to adding the opposite, then you just have to know the rules for adding. That makes that easy. Well, easier. I think adding and subtracting is the hardest one of the whole bunch. The subtracting one's terrible. Honestly, even I changed all the signs to adding the opposite. And I've been doing this for a long time. Well, what about multiplying and dividing? Those are a lot easier. Luckily. And then you could ask me some questions. I know there's some tricky ones right away on the first problem on yesterday's. This is easy. If they're both the same sign, if they're both positive, I'm going to get a positive. If they're both negative numbers, I'm going to get a positive. Remember, this is 2 wrongs make a right. It's the only time it's true. Okay, did I spell that right? Yeah, I did. And if you have a positive, a negative, or negative positive, that's going to be a negative. So multiplying and dividing are much easier than adding and subtracting. I really don't have to think too much with these. If you have an odd number of negatives, like a negative 1 times a negative 1 times a negative 1, the answer will be, well, 1 times 1 times 1 is just what? 1. And I have an odd number. There's 3 negatives. That's an odd number. So the answer will be a negative 1. If you have an even number of negatives, and you guys can print these out once I get them up there, then you can bring your notes in your tests and quizzes. I even let you use your iPad because there's nothing out there that's going to help you. A negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Michael, what does this give me? Negative 1 times a negative 1. 2 negatives make a positive. What's 1 times 1? 1. What about this one? That's 1. So the answer is 1. So if you have an even number of negatives, you will get a positive answer. If you have an odd number of negatives, you're going to get a negative answer. So what do I do to do these problems? It doesn't matter. You can decide the sign first, but what I do is I multiply or divide, whatever it is. Now, this is not order of operations, so you're not going to have things mixed up to make you decide what order you should do it in. So I multiply, divide, and then I decide on the sign. But you could switch these, doesn't matter. It's all thinking. And that's all there is. So when you do these group activities, these are kind of hard. And if you might want to go to group activity 2, and it doesn't really matter which one it is. And then we're doing operations with integers D. But let's look at some of those fraction ones. Where were those? This is on group activity 2. And only a few of you have turned this in. Oh, hang on, I gotta fix this. And a number of you were skipping the fractions. You know what? It doesn't matter if they're fractions or if they're integers. Now, on your quiz, I'll be honest, I'm not going to test you on fractions. But that doesn't mean we can't do them. Because if you take more algebra, you have to know a little bit about fractions. So let's look at 41. That's got fractions in it. It's 1/2 divided by negative 3/5. Honestly, it's probably easier to do the sign first. I like to do the easy stuff first. You know why? It makes me feel good. Like I've accomplished something. It's a positive times a negative. How many negatives do you see here? This is positive, that's positive, that's positive. How many negatives do you see? 1. Is that odd or even? You know what odd or even is? Odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Evens are 2, 4, 6, 8. You won't get up that high. Okay, so is the sign going to be positive or negative? And you have a 50-50 chance. Josh, what do you think? I have 3 positives and 1 negative. It's going to be negative. Okay. Now, do you remember how to divide fractions? We forgot already? We leave the first one alone. And divided by, I got to change that to multiplying. And then I have to do the reciprocal of this. I've already done the sign, so I'll just do this. 5 thirds. And we do a lot of this in algebra. Tons of this in algebra. Multiplying fractions. That more than adding, actually. So what happens when I multiply the numerators? Because that's all I have to do. What's 1 times 5? 5. And 2 times 3 is 6. That wasn't so hard, was it? All I did was add a sign in there. We've done the fractions. Just decide the sign first or last. I don't care. There were some other ones that were kind of hard. 45. 42. Let's look at 42. It's negative 6/7 divided by negative 3/5. Now, sometimes we have to do repetition because we just don't know what else to do. It's the only way we're going to learn it. Because this comes into, really, this does come into memorizing. What do 2 negatives make? Mike, what do 2 negatives make? Positive. So good, I don't have to deal with it. So it's 6/7, and what do you do with division? Do you remember? You make it what? Multiply by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 3/5? Gabe, what's the reciprocal of 3/5? You just flip it upside down. Yeah, we know that. We just did a whole bunch of stuff on it. And we should reduce. Now, some of you want to go ahead and multiply and get 30 over 21. That would be correct, but it's not reduced. It's easier to reduce first. I can go ahead and divide these numbers. As long as this is times, I can divide any number from the denominator into the numerator, provided it goes evenly. So 3 goes into 3. How many times? Once. 3 goes into 6. Twice. Now multiply what's left over. In the numerator, I have 2 times 5, which is 10. In the denominator, 7 times 1, which is 7. And I said that when we finished with that fraction stuff, I was perfectly okay with an improper fraction. You should know how to change it to a mixed number, especially if you're shopping or buying something. You know, that's a little bit of a problem. Let's do another one. You should be writing these down. You should be doing them with me. So I'll let you try. So I did, that was 45. Let's do 46, and then I'll let you try the rest. There aren't too many of the rest. Oh, I do want to go over 21 and 22 as well. Okay, 46. What I really like about math is it tells me what to do. Still on activity 2. Doesn't matter, activity 1, activity 2, they're about the same. Hey, Gabe, how do I subtract those fractions, or those numbers? Really, there's 2 problems here. I have the numerator, and I have the denominator. This bar here, which is called a vinculum, I'm probably the only one in the math department that knows what that is, what that's called. It's just a parentheses. It says, do what's in the numerator, do what's in the denominator. So, do you remember, Gabe, what I told you to do with subtracting? Because I don't like subtracting. We make this adding the opposite. We always make subtracting adding the opposite. Then there's only one rule to know. So, Gabe, what happens when I add a negative 7 and a negative 8? No, we're adding, not multiplying. It's negative what? So 7 degrees below 0, it's going to drop another 8. Where are we going to be, Mike? 7 below 0, it's going to drop another 8 degrees. Yeah. Does that help to think about this in terms of temperatures? Or you can think of money. You're $7 overdrawn, and then you write a check for another 8. You guys know what the overdraft fee is? Every time you overdraw, 35 bucks. Yeah, and they've changed how they do it. plus, and they give you overdraft fees on overdraft fees, which I think is way wrong, because you're not even given the chance to fix the problem, so never make a mistake. And what about this? -4 to +3. Mike, do you know that one? Sure you do. -4 and +3. -1. See? Just got to focus and pay attention. And what happens when I divide two negatives? They become what? Now we mix them up. That's just the reason why it's hard. So if you have your notes in front of you, and you can just look it up, because I'm not timing you on that. Two negatives make a positive. Okay, couple, and now you should have all these right, because I just did them. Right? If I save it and get it up there during the hour, you'll have it to look back at. I can do that. And the next two I wanted to look at were 21 and 22. And why? Because these are really important. This board is having its issues today. This is 0 divided by 5, which is this. 22 is 7 divided by 0, and they wrote it this way. Are those the same things? Get your calculators out and see what they are. I'll try it with a pen, see if that works any better. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. As long as it doesn't screech. Okay, we'll see if that works. What did you get for the top one?
Which one are you doing?
This is activity 2. That's the one that was due yesterday. People haven't turned it in. It's this one, group activity 2. They should have it.
It's on a group activity.
This is they have group activity 1. They did get it. Whether or not they've lost it is a different matter. And I could make some more copies, but they could still write this down. I don't know where the other ones are. Might be in the back. Group activity 2, I gave it to you 2 days ago, several days ago. You didn't miss anything yesterday. No, this is an old one. You just gave it, no, you gave me the other one. I should have it. I can run more copies, but you all have it. Paris has hers, and I know everybody was here. Paris, did you divide 0 by 5, and what'd you get? This is 21. 0 divided by 5. Use your calculator if you don't believe me. That's 0. Because think about this. Now, one reason why you guys are in this class is you've never been asked to think. Your teachers have shown you how to do things, and things never made sense to you, and you tried to make sense out of them, but you couldn't do it. But I don't teach that way. Let's make this make sense. Here's how much money I have in my pockets. I don't have any pockets. I have $0, and I'm going to give it all away to 5 people. How much is anybody going to get? 0. Okay? Makes sense? What if I have $7, and I'm going to give it away to 0 people? Does that make sense? No. So this you should have gotten an error on your calculator, and so we say it's undefined. Now, if you are really lazy like I am, and to do a little calculus, we say it does not exist. By the way, we do all this stuff in calculus. It has a real meaning. But right now, it does not exist. Everything you do leads up to calculus and statistics. Everything does not exist. And another field they call discrete math, probability, which I put in the statistics, I guess. So in calculus, we write does not exist with the first 3 letters, and everybody knows what that means. Somebody long ago said, I'm going to be lazy. That's what I want to do. I don't want to write it out. That's what math people are like. We're very lazy. I can go print some more, but they should have them. Okay. Well, they did get them. They just lost them. Unless they were absent.
Use your folders. You need to have a folder in here.
And I haven't had a chance to get the Walgreens. Okay. So those are some of the questions. What I'm going to do is save this as a PDF, and then I will go ahead and put this up on Schoology. I can do this right now. And there are your notes. It's as succinct as you can be. Do you guys know what succinct means? Have you heard that word before? It's a good word. It's a great word. Another word would be concise, but I think succinct's stronger. short and to the point. Some of you are saying, this is not an English class. Oh, math is just another variation of the English language. So we want to, this is succinct. I'm summarizing everything that we've done in one nutshell today that we spent several days doing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save all this stuff. And you